始合伙人、特殊项目总监 Conor 为我们带来的一个主题演讲《连接世界的通行证》，掌声有请。
Thank you. Oh, okay. Hello, I'm Conor Caldwell, and I am with Blockpass. So Blockpass is identity for the connected world. Let's see how this... Okay, so we're going to watch a quick video.
It's incredibly painful. What if you fill in one box compliance form, get verified, and never fill one in again? Introducing Blockpass, the blockchain-based, safe, immutable, distributed KYC verified identities. Simply provide personal information and Blockpass will check it. Once that's clean, you can instantly interact with all Blockpass-enabled applications, like opening a bank account or exchanging cryptocurrency in seconds. And after you've been verified with this stored personal data, we are providing a foundation for seamless and trusted interaction between humans, companies, and devices. Blockpass, passport for a connected world.
Okay, so the immediate focus of Blockpass is shared KYC and AML compliance, specifically for the crypto and blockchain ecosystem. It also definitely applies to all fintech startups, traditional industry, and government organizations. So initially we're focused on providing self-sovereign identity for individuals. But the interesting thing is sort of how Blockpass got its start. And that's important to understand the main objectives of Blockpass over the long term. So how did we get here? Actually, Blockpass began as a joint venture to develop a decentralized autonomous utility, a DAU, but specifically a solar DAU. In this situation, we use the identity of a solar panel from birth, which I'll explain in a minute, and connect it with a human identity and a company identity to make a near frictionless utility system. So Blockpass is a joint venture between Chain of Things and Infinity Blockchain Labs. I come from the Chain of Things side. I'm a co-founder of that. On Chain of Things side, we've been studying how blockchain can support the Internet of Things for the last 2.5 years. So it's sort of the next stage, or what we see as the next stage of all of the stuff going on right now. The new technology of blockchain hits the lightest industries first, so fintech, everything, and then we'll move eventually to the heavier stuff that is embedded and will be increasingly embedded all around us. So contextually, like, we began looking at the Internet of Things 2.5 years ago, and we see major issues with security and interoperability. And this is a huge threat to how trustworthy our future is when we're relying on these devices to make pretty significant decisions for us without us having to know that they're making those decisions. So this is what Chain of Things has been looking at. Our solution that we've come up to this extent at least, given I guess the maturity of the blockchain platforms right now, is that we want to create device identity from birth for all manufactured devices and objects. The main point of this is to give humans control over all things. Like, humans should always have control over the data that comes off of devices, as well as the actuations the device is responsible for and capable of, and then also who has ability to permission devices to different individuals or different companies, or to transfer ownership entirely. So yeah, I mean, like, this is sort of how we see everything laid out in the most basic way. So human identity should be on top. And below that, company identities report to it, and object identities and device identities. There always needs to be a hierarchy when we look at identity profiles. If you're driving a Tesla down the road, it is an AI that runs the Tesla that reports to you, and no one else can tell the brakes in that Tesla to do anything but the AI that reports to you. So that we believe is very important to keep this structure as the world gets increasingly complex and automated. So what happened with the solar project? I mean, we basically hit a roadblock with that project where, because the concept of device identity, especially a blockchain-based device identity, is new. And so there's not yet a platform, at least not like an off-the-shelf platform that allows you to easily connect a human identity with a company identity with a device identity. So essentially, in a nutshell, the way that this model would work is that the company would own the solar panel module and be able to permission a human to access it through cellular, as long as the smart contract verifies that the human has paid their energy bill. That you can create like a very frictionless thing, but again, there is no way to connect the three of them because device identity is a somewhat new topic. So our options were to develop an internal solution to that problem, or pause the solar project altogether and create Blockpass, which is a much more comprehensive solution that can be used to connect humans to companies, to objects, to devices, and can be used by all sorts of different industries, all sorts of different applications for the next industrial revolution, which will involve many connected devices. So before we get to that, though, let's focus on what Blockpass is doing right now. So obviously there are huge needs for compliance in the blockchain space. It's quite annoying right now. You sign up for an exchange, you sign up for an ICO, you sign up for a bank account, you try to get a mortgage. Like, it takes time. It's, you know, you have a lot of customers bounce. It's like you can't interoperate. Even though you've done your KYC for one company, it doesn't work for another. So it's really just not a great process at this point. Yeah, I mean, here's some examples of main problems faced with compliance that the blockchain has some pretty big issues with. I mean, I'll run through these. I know we don't have too much time. Okay, a good example at Coinbase, just to onboard like a new user, it can cost up to 20% of the cost of onboarding a new user, and take sometimes multiple weeks in order to run the KYC check. So why do that every time for a new bank or a new exchange or whatnot? Why not just do it once and then share that information? So another big problem area are ICOs. Many of the ICOs that have raised huge amounts of money thus far have not done anything more than take a email address or a phone number, and that's already clearly a huge issue that the SEC is beginning to shut down on right now. So this all begins with self-sovereign identity, and the idea of instead of having a centralized body hold all the identity, it actually can live on your phone. So the way that we do it is essentially you'll submit your data through us. We only hold it, we don't really hold it, we just kind of pass it to an aggregate of the best KYC partners in the world, depending on your region. They'll make sure that you're, I guess, a valid individual, verify that you're not a money launderer or terrorist. Once your packet of sensitive data is verified, we'll simply take a hash of it, and then take that hash representation of that verified data packet, and that is what goes on the blockchain. That's the only thing that goes on chain. It's completely anonymous. It's you cannot like reverse it back to the original data. We don't hold the data. In fact, we audit ourselves. We blow away the data, and we audit ourselves publicly to prove that we don't hold any of the data. That data goes back to you and lives on your phone, like your wallet. And so when you engage with a merchant, the merchant pays a small fee to see that hash representation of that verified data packet that you have. And so if you change one, so they pay to see that, and then they're able to line that hash up with the whitelist that is on the blockchain. And if it comes up with a match, then they know that that hash representation of your data is clean and that you're good. If you change one pixel, one digit in the information that you've already been verified for, then it will obviously change the entire hash, and you'll need to go through the process again because it won't line up. So that's in a nutshell how the Blockpass process works. Yes, I mean this explains that we create this white list, and it is anonymous. I mean, it's just basically a bunch of like anonymous verified hashes. So businesses benefit because it's just much more rapid user onboarding. Like it's very low cost, like pre-verification, and then it really just has a lot of new application potentials because we're initially focusing on doing this for, I suppose, the human ID aspect of regulated industries, but you can do this for all sorts of different industries that require some sort of identification. So it could be for shipping carriers, it could be for Airbnb hosts, it can be for drivers, it could be for all different types of identity verticals. The same model. Individuals benefit because it is like a much faster gateway to access compliance services. So the way that our service works is you just basically scan a QR code on the front of a website, just the same way as you'd log in with WhatsApp Web or WeChat, and immediately it shakes hands and basically asks you, this merchant wants access to these levels of verified data that you have. And then you can decide, sort of when you install an app on your phone and it asks you, it wants permission to use your phone book, your camera, and like all these different things, and you can allow it. And then also you can redact that permission later. So the current process, we're based in Hong Kong. Our joint venture partner is based in Saigon. We're funded fairly well so far. The Blockpass app has actually been in development for more than 6 months now. We're aiming to release at the end of March, and we're targeting like a number of different, specifically blockchain industries first, but we're also open to all of the different potential application verticals that can be used for Blockpass. Future development, and this is where I guess I get the most excited. I know what we're working on right now is the KYC AML compliance aspect of it, but when we get to the next stage of this entire ecosystem development, we'll be playing with objects, the ownership of assets and objects, and also devices, which will allow for the creation of some very cool models. So here's an example. I mean, this is, of course, the solar model that we were working on initially. This is very reminiscent to M-Pesa's M-Copa model that is currently, I think there may be like 20 companies in Africa doing a very similar model of off-grid electric utility systems, and that's carried over to gas and all sorts of different other rental services. So additionally, we have tracking of objects through smart buckets. So it's really all comes down to the most basic level of identity for objects and like the different groups in these parties. So one other thing, we're in the future, we're also beginning to work on zero knowledge proofs, which should remove most of the human aspect involved with processing this, so that it can be much more self-sovereign and almost purely owned by the individual. So I'm not sure how we're doing with time, but I'm open to questions if anyone has any. Thanks.